What's up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. Appreciate you guys tuning in, man. Thank you to everybody that watched the Universal album video. I know I was rambling. I know it was 29 minutes long. For anybody that sat through that whole video, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I gotta get better at just condensing my videos, man, and being a little bit more efficient in getting my point across, man. But I'm back. This is sort of look at this video today, man. I know you guys saw the title. It's Take Care, a classic. I'm not going to focus on Drake's entire discography. I'm only going to focus on Take Care, because I feel like and maybe even Nothing Was the Same. Maybe I'll touch on Nothing Was the Same as well. Those two albums, because those seem to be the albums that are really like seem to get the most momentum on social media, at least in terms of what albums people believe Drake has as hip hop classics. But I wanted to touch on this comment that I saw in the comment section, man. Big shout out to Kernan4230. Kernan said in the comment section underneath the Universal album video that I put out yesterday, he said, I was expecting this video to address the reason people are suddenly talking about Universal classics. The Ebro comments on Drake not having a hip hop classic. He said, I think the more interesting discussion is with the evolution of hip hop into more R&B fusion and trap music. What is a hip hop album? If half of Take Care is R&B, how can you compare that to a hip-hop classic like Reasonable Doubt, Illmatic, Ready to Die, Me Against the World, 36 Chambers, ATLNs, etc.? It's a different subgenre of music. It can be a cultural classic, but not a pure hip-hop classic since it's not a pure hip-hop album. Would the Source magazine give Take Care 5 mics? Probably not. But maybe that's the old head way of rating albums based on lyrical excellence, production, concept, cohesion, originality, replay value, impact, no filler, influence. A classic album in the Source needed to do all of, or at least the vast majority of those things at a high level to get 5 mics. Great comment, my man. You actually reminded me that I didn't touch what I wanted to touch in the video that I put out, which was the whole thing that got this classic album discussion online and on social media going, which was Ebro's comments. He kind of posed the question, does Drake have pure hip-hop classics? He does believe Drake has classics, so I want to make sure I'm clear on that. He did say that, but he was just saying kind of what you're getting to here is, are they sort of hip-hop classic? Are they pure, or are they sort of something else because he's using R&B? So let's talk about it, man. I want to take people down let's take people down memory lane. Remember Wayne's World? Remember that shit from Wayne's World? You know, where they went into this sort of, Back to the Future, right? And reflecting on the past. Let's talk about when we say pure, right? I think in order to get an understanding on if Take Care is a pure hip hop classic, I think we have to ask ourselves, well, let's talk about hip hop in general. What is hip hop? Is hip hop a pure genre, right? When you think of hip hop, when you think of the origins of hip hop, when you think of how hip hop began or how hip hop was the essence of hip hop. The essence of hip hop is a Frankenstein makeshift genre. And that, I don't mean that to be derogatory. That's just the reality. Hip hop is a Frankenstein makeshift genre that sort of combines R&B and jazz and funk. I've heard opera in hip hop. I've heard classical samples in hip hop, right? The actual music in hip hop is a melding of different genres. That's the spirit of hip hop. That's the essence of it, right? Not to mention that we've had rappers that have been, R&B, that have done R&B, hip hop R&B songs for forever. You know what I'm saying? Mary J. And the one song that comes to mind is Mary J. and Method Man, You're All I Need, right? Where Method Man's rapping, Mary J. is singing on the chorus. So let's think about that, right? Your hip hop, your genre, our genre, the genre that we love, doesn't exist without R&B. Like, literally, like it doesn't exist. There is no hip hop without the sampling that has that hip hop samples from R&B and funk and of course everything else. But R&B is probably the big. I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I have stats on this, but just based off of experience, I would say the overwhelming vast majority of samples that hip hop takes are probably R&B samples. That is the bread and butter of hip hop is soul samples, right? Thinking of James Brown and Luther Vandross. I mean, shit, Kendrick just and SZA just put out a song, Luther, sampling Luther Vandross's voice. So your genre, our genre, doesn't exist without someone else's hard work that they made from scratch. Like the chord progressions, drum fills, the actual singing, it's to the point where some rappers don't even get paid on songs that they create, right? This is a hip hop song that you can make. We'll use Kanye's Through the Wire as an example. I think the writer of Through the Wire came out, or one of the writers came out and said that Kanye West didn't get any publishing or something like that on that song. So Kanye essentially, I'm not saying he's not making any money on that song in any way, but at least in terms of the publishing, I think he's making no money. That is a song that got Kanye West out of here for the most part, right? Or at least got people's attention on Kanye West. He's not even making any money from that because he used Shaka Khan's voice and writers and all that other stuff that wrote through The Wire in order to make his creation. So I just find it funny that we're I don't even know if you can say hip hop is necessarily pure. There's certain things about hip hop that are pure, but as a genre, it is a Frankenstein makeshift genre that uses other people's work so much so that you have to break bread and pay money to these people. Sometimes you don't make any money on samples that you use in order to make your music exist. So the idea of purity and what's a pure hip hop album in a genre that the whole spirit and the essence of it is taking from other genres to make it its own thing, I find that a little odd. You know what I'm saying? So when I think of Drake using R&B, first of all, I had to, before I turned this video on, I had to look, I was like, didn't Drake rap on like damn near 90% of the album? And I literally added the shit up. He rapped on, I think, 80% of the songs. And then quite frankly, the songs that are in that 20% that I just kind of said wasn't rapping were hybrid songs where he was kind of rapping and singing, right? So he's rapping on 80% of the songs and the production is hip hop production. I don't care if it's slowed up and with the sort of synthy, ethereal synths and all that. That's hip hop shit. That is the stuff that 40 and Drake came in the game with. So he has hip hop beats. He rapped on 80% of the album, and I think the same thing can go for Nothing Was the Same. I think he rapped a little bit more, maybe about 85% on Nothing Was the Same with hip hop beats. So what are we talking about when we say pure? I mean, is hip hop pure? You know, I mean, let's look at the albums that you mentioned, my man. Reasonable Doubt. Reasonable Doubt, Can't Knock the Hustle, and all these other songs. I mean, these are songs. I think damn near almost every song on Reasonable Doubt used R&B production. Ready to Die, R&B production. Me Against the World, damn sure used R&B production. Wu-Tang used R&B samples as well. On Tears and all that, I believe is one that's coming to mind with 36 Chambers. ATLiens damn sure used R&B samples. So every single album you mention has R&B in it. Just because they're not singing, it doesn't mean that they're not using R&B. R&B and hip hop go hand in hand. Again, there is no hip hop without R&B. When hip hop first started, people were scratching old R&B albums and making beats and you know what I'm saying, and sampling essentially, right? Making beats with old R&B albums. So now we can't start playing a pure game when your genre is based on impurity. You know, these guys aren't making these beats from scratch. Some of them are. Not every beat is a sample, but the overwhelming vast majority of songs that I've heard in my life have samples from R&B or funk or jazz, rock, classical, right? So I just don't think you can play that game. You know, the bottom line is Drake raps and he sings, which has always been a staple of R&B and hip hop. He's not the first to do it. Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, I promise you, man, no one was saying that album wasn't a hip hop rap album. No one wasn't even looking or thinking in those terms when it came to Lauryn Hill. We know she gets busy. You know what I'm saying? And then in the songs that she did rap on, she went to work on. So no one was like, well, the percentages and it's pure R&B. Nobody was doing that corny shit. No disrespect to you, man. That's not aimed at you, Kernan, by the way. But just when people say that, I'm just like, nobody was doing that. Everybody looked at that as a rap classic / R&B classic. It fulfilled both because she did some amazing rapping on it and she sung some amazing songs on it. So the same thing can be said about Take Care. And it's sad because I'm not saying anything I think that we all don't know, right? I just feel like somewhere along the way, there was a disconnect between generations. People just things weren't passed down. Ebro knows better. Ebro knows what he's doing. He has an axe to grind with Drake. And him and Drake have some sort of weird relationship. Drake sent the man a DM saying he wanted him to die and all this crazy stuff. So there's a weird relationship there. But I think Ebro knows, and I'm not saying necessarily that Ebro did specifically say that Drake didn't have hip-hop albums. I think he just posed a question because he just maybe thought it was debatable. It's not even debatable. I think it's disrespectful to even pose that. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, R&B and hip-hop are synonymous. There's no hip-hop hip-hop does not exist without R&B elements. So someone sings a little bit, someone raps a little bit. You know what I mean? I remember when hip hop and R&B, we'll go back to the Method Man and Mary J. Blige song. I remember when a song like that was looked at as a crossover song, right? It was meant to cross over, genres emerging, R&B, hip hop, right? And people were bucking at that a little bit back then. And guess what? Over time, those sort of, you know, those cries died down significantly. Now everybody looks at that as a pure hip hop classic. So, you know, and I guess what does that mean for hip hop? What does that mean? It means that people accepted evolution. They accepted change, right? And I think that that's kind of where we are now. We have to, I believe gatekeeping to a degree is necessary. I think that there's been some things that have happened over the last 7 years where people just use hip hop as a lick. And you could just tell there was little to no effort put into the music, in the mainstream at least. So that's where gatekeeping comes in. But I feel like gatekeeping can also stifle growth. It can stifle creativity. So I think, this whole idea of what a pure hip hop classic is we need to evolve, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying I'm the end all be all and I'm the, you have to agree with me. But again, I just feel like it's a bit contradictory or hypocritical to then try to all of a sudden like say Drake is over here. He's in some subgenre. No, he's not. Drake is a hip hop dude. He's a hip hop enthusiast, hip hop collector. And he raps, and he's been rapping from day one. You know what I'm saying? And he incorporates and melds R&B in his music, just like we've seen in hip-hop for decades at this point. So he has a pure hip-hop classic, to answer your question. Take Care, for sure. I'm not going to talk about some of the other albums or, albums or maybe album that may be another classic for Drake. Maybe I'll save that for another video. But I just wanted to address that and put my 2 cents in, man. I just think the battle, again, has scrambled people's brains. I think Drake is... People look at Drake like he's the Antichrist. I think people have a problem with Drake being from Canada and being a biracial dude and being corny. I just think these are things that we didn't say certain things to Lauryn Hill. We didn't say certain things to Andre 3000 when he was doing certain commercial joints, right? And going the pop route. We didn't really question him too much. But when it comes to Drake, we question things. Andre 3000 has a song called Prototype. Prototype. This is basically almost like a rock song, an indie rock type of song. He's singing on Hey Ya, Roses, and all these pop rap joints, right? And y'all call those albums pure classics from Outkast. Some of you do. I don't think that album's a classic, but that's another story. But when it comes to Drake, it's different. And I just feel like I don't want to be looked at as a Drake defense channel. But I feel like some of the takes that I see and some of the undertones that I see regarding him are so egregious that I feel like, well, damn, you were giving me no choice but to give the man credit. Like, damn, you know what I mean? You don't have to hate the man. You don't have to like the man's music to acknowledge the obvious fact. When Take Care dropped, that shit shook the world. In hip hop, it was in every hood, which I look at. Y'all know now at this point what I'm looking at. That any black environment you can think of. You know what I'm saying? Any spades game, house party, ball court, everybody. Marvin's Room was going off. Marvin's Room, that's not even a club song, was going off in a club. That shit shook the world, changed the game, and melody, that's all you see. It's weird to find a hip-hop song without melody these days. You know what I'm saying? So, not saying Drake invented it, but he definitely elevated it, and he influenced the change. Of course, that's an undeniable hip-hop classic. Just accept the evolution of the genre, and that's it, brother. Just give it up. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you, Kernan, you're doing this, Kernan, but I'm just saying for people out there that may be watching this video, just give it up, man. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? Drake he's undeniable, man. But one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and this is something I've always thought about as it relates to hip hop. Hip hop, if you think about it, right, it takes from different genres, as in the actual music of hip hop, the stories, the rapping and everything, the stories and all that come from these disenfranchised youth, right? At least, right? At least most of them are disenfranchised. Those stories are pure and real, right? But the music itself, it is taking from other genres, other finished work, and maybe chopping it and making it something slightly different, but it is taken from something else. But I've always looked at hip hop as the future. I think hip hop was the start of what I feel like the future is, which is genreless music. Music that just isn't so much fixated on being rock or being metal or being country or being blues or jazz. I feel like, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing rap and country do its thing. We saw it back in the day. In the early 2000s, rap and metal had made sort of a connection. Rap, rock, metal with new metal. There's a category of rap metal called new metal or hip hop metal, new metal. Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, and some of these bands, man. System of a Down using scratching in their music. Rage Against the Machine. That's early 90s. And I always felt like hip hop was sort of the start of what I felt like, or what I feel like the future is. I think we are pretty much headed towards everything being mixed. I just feel like I don't know what else can be done at this point in terms of some new sounds that we've never heard before. I don't know what else can be done. I'm sure maybe someone at some point will introduce completely new sounds. but I get the feeling that the eras or the future of music is just mixing of everything. And I think hip hop was the sort of kickoff for that. That's another thing that I think makes hip hop so special. You know, hip hop came in and used classical and R&B and jazz and all that to kind of make the music. And then, of course, everything else was influenced by it. Rock was influenced by it, right? With the new metal. And now every song that I'm seeing Big X the Plug make country songs now, like, or have country choruses and want to make country albums. Shabuzi is doing his thing now, hip hop and slash country. And, you know, a lot of indie rock songs have hip hop elements, man. And then there was trip hop that came in the late 90s or early 90s as well, right? Trip hop, which used hip hop and then kind of did its own thing with electronic, atmospheric elements and all this other stuff, right? But hip hop to me always felt like the start of what the future of music is, which is music without genres. So I think that's what makes hip hop special. And when I think of people like Drake, giving it back to Drake, I think that's Drake. I think Drake is the guy that is deliberately blurring the lines, right? And progressing music in general. And I think he sees it. I think he knows that this is just what it is. Hip hop is always sort of used dance hall, Beanie Man, Super Cat, and all these people, Buju Banton, Damian Marley with Nas, with the Distant Relatives album, right? Hip hop is always played with blending genres. Biggie sang on Life After Death. Remember the Player Hater, You've Been Robbed? Player Hater, You've Been Robbed. Remember that song on Life After Death? You know what I'm saying? Were people saying, oh, that wasn't a pure hip hop album because Biggie was singing Player Hater on it? No. You know what I'm saying? So we can't pick and choose when, you know, we're going to say Drake is not pure hip hop, but then when these guys do it, it is pure hip hop. No, dude. Hip hop has always been a melding of different genres, whether it's hip hop and dance hall and reggae and R&B. We got to, like, come on, man. Come on. We got to move on. We got to evolve. That's just the hip hop's nature. Its spirit is evolution to me. It is the start of the evolution of, I think, music in general, the genreless future of music. So that's my, that's my TED Talk. Thank you, Kernan, for that comment, man. That was dope. That got me going. One more other comment I wanted to address. My man had mentioned something about Eminem. I mean, I know that this is off topic, but I did want to address that. He didn't really like the whole hip hop has to be approved by the hood in order to be a classic thing. I don't know what to tell you, champ. That's always been the case. You know what I'm saying? You can ask anyone of age, 38 plus. I don't want to say of age to diminish you if you're not of age. I'm just saying, like, if you ask someone that's been around, hip hop gets approved by the hood first, and then the rest of the world catches on. Black culture is the byproduct, right? It all of the sauce, all of the innovation comes from the hood. The rest of the world catches on. And so to me, my logic is how hip hop has always worked is that, yes, that, you know, the approval, the stamps come from that environment. That is the soil of hip hop. You know what I mean? Or at least it matters the most. I'm not going to take a critic's opinion. I'm not looking at record sales as much. You mean, I'm not saying that record sales don't count. I'm not taking some random critic's opinion. You know what I'm saying? I'm not taking a Grammy's opinion. Like, so I'm gonna take the opinion of people who hip hop is supposed to represent. I don't see how that's me wilding. And you brought up Eminem as an example. You were like, well, Eminem wouldn't qualify. I don't know. Y'all have to get away from, I'm not saying, I don't want to disrespect you, man, but yeah, that is another internet narrative that needs to end. Eminem's first 3 albums was ringing off in the hood. Yes, it was. Now, I'm not going to compare Eminem's his playability to Jay and Nas and Pac and Big and on the other greats. I'm not saying people were playing it like that, but people were definitely playing Eminem's album in ghettos in those first 3 albums. Now, after that, absolutely not. But them first 3 joints, you know what I'm saying, got burned. The Way I Am and the whole Marshall Mathers LP, Eminem Show, and Slim Shady L, yes, they got burned. And people were curious about him, and they gave him a shot for sure. He made his mark. He has definitely delivered at least one classic. So I don't know what you're talking about from there. Eminem would qualify. He was played in the hood. So for sure, that whole internet, people don't play Eminem in the hood. Yeah, that's now in 2026. Correct. And for a very long time, it's been that way. But in the beginning, stop it. Anyone who tells you otherwise don't know what they're talking about. They wasn't outside. Eminem shit was played outside. So anyways, man, shout out to Kernan, 4230. And my man, I'm not trying to come at you, by the way, with the Eminem comment. I'm just, it's more so about people who act like Eminem shit wasn't played in the hood. Shout out to you for leaving your comment as well, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and that's it, man. Like the video. I'm George. This is Rhyme Rate. I'm out.